In this video, we're going to do Project Update 3 on the 4x4 Adventure Explorer. We're going to look at adding the garage for the Scout vehicle, ramp design, a new turret with a cannon, and get into the cockpit, adding seats and a hatch. So welcome back. We're looking at the Adventure vehicle again. And last thing I worked on was the back section of the vehicle, which was kind of like a garage, a workspace. But I really wasn't feeling it. It didn't really fulfill that fantasy of ramp with a place to drive the scout vehicle in and out of the main vehicle. And so I felt like that was a bit lacking and wanted to kind of revisit that. I picked up this Can-Am 4x4 or side-by-side, and I thought that was a good scale to start looking at as a scout vehicle. It looked like, when I was mocking it up, it wouldn't have to be too wide. It wasn't too big, wouldn't hang off too much, especially if it was oriented side to side and not back to front. So I started mocking up with cardboard, looking at different things, sort of this old G.I. Joe vehicles, what would happen with that? Could we get that tracked vehicle in there, which would be really cool because it was RC. And then kind of thinking about the ramp and how that would work. This is kind of similar to the train project I did, so I had a little experience with this. And I was pretty confident I could get something to work with this ramp. And it looked like it wouldn't be too big. It wouldn't make the back of the vehicle too massive, and I was kind of excited about that. Really wanted to make this work, wanted to fulfill that kind of idea of the scout vehicle kind of popping out of the back. So started to mock up some ideas, the way the ramp could maybe fold up, unfold, and still be able to allow the vehicle to reach the ground, considering it was pretty high off the ground. Didn't want the ramp to be too steep, but also didn't feel like it had to be, totally realistic and be able to really drive up there. So I got to work. I modeled it up, did some 3D prints, and put the ramp pieces together. I made it so that they'd use some magnets to kind of keep the ramp together as it was unfolded, and also to keep it in place when you pushed it into its position in the hull, so it wouldn't fall out, wouldn't require anything. And there you can see, kind of like snaps in half. With the magnets holding it, and then there are magnets on either side of the door, and those hold it up and in place. Now the magnets that hold it in place were great, but they just didn't hold it up when it was supposed to be a flat, straight ramp, and so the weight of the scout vehicle would actually kind of bend the ramp or break it at that point. And so here you can see me rolling it down, and that was kind of quick, so I think it didn't put enough pressure for too long. But there I'm kind of like having to lift up the scout vehicle when rolling it back in so that the ramp wouldn't bend. And that kind of stunk. I wasn't excited about that. I really wanted this to work well. So I was trying to think of different ways to make it work or make this function. And then I found more rectangular, stronger kind of magnets. And so mocked it up and tried it with those. And those did the trick. They were strong enough to really hold it in place. And so I didn't really have to worry about what scout vehicle I wanted to use or how much it weighed, and that was all good. So here you can see it kind of moving around with the new garage on the back, which I think is great, and with the new door. And here you can see when I open it, the round magnets hold it in place, but then those just really lock it in place. And here I've got an old G.I. Joe like vintage vamp, and what's awesome is it fits in there. It's actually the same size as that 4x4 ATV, and there I can just roll it right down and not have to worry about the weight and roll it right back in. And I love that the vamp fits in. I think it's even better than that Can-Am. So I'll probably like modify the body to work a little bit better, maybe fit more figures and some more different kind of weaponry and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm so excited. We got the garage on there with the ramp, and it really feels like that kind of old school, exploring vehicle with the scout vehicle inside and a real proper garage and all that. So very excited that I went through and did this. The next piece I wanted to add to the Explorer vehicle was the turret. So for a while I've had this cardboard cutout. I also had some mock-ups that I was doing with some other 3D printed pieces I'd done. I was looking at a lot of modern MBTs, but also IFVs. I really like this French IFV, very modern. Lots of kind of grenade launchers, lots of optical sensors, missile launchers, just nice armor. And it kind of reminded me of a vehicle I'd done a while ago. So I grabbed some of my old 3D models. One was also from the AML 90 I did for G.I. Joe. sort of put it on there and started mocking it up. I really liked the kind of low profile, the big optical kind of sensor area. And I was also toying around with this sort of, like a Gatling cannon with its own kind of radar kind of guidance. But I really wanted a true turret. Wanted something with a hatch where we could put figures, because I really like that. In all the tanks, like the Mauler or the Mobat, you've got your figures able to stick out, and kind of, look around the battlefield, but also just being able to see what kind of figures you have in the vehicle. And so wanted that kind of opening. So modeled this up, 3D printed it, kind of added all the elements of things that I liked, those optical viewfinders, the kind of idea of the composite armor, the applique armor, kind of bolted onto the side. Felt that gave it a near future kind of modern view. And so 3D printed that in resin and was really happy with how it came out. You can also see in the sides, I kind of put some structural elements on there, thinking about, this barrel, kind of futuristic barrel. It's kind of like a double barrel, almost like a double barrel shotgun, but like vertically placed. The idea that, it's just kind of futuristic and having a little bit of fun with it. So really excited with how this came out. Obviously, this isn't a tank. It's not even an IFE, but this gives it a little bit of punch and a little bit of, ability to go into combat, fight off some creatures or some enemies, and just have some exciting adventures. I'm very excited because now I'm moving on to the interior of the vehicle and looking at the cockpit. Because it's in the front, going to work my way back. The cockpit is also probably the most important room in the vehicle because it's where the crew steers, navigates, figures out where they're going. I was definitely inspired by the Ghost when I started working on this project, but I felt like the interior seats and controls felt a little stiff in theirs and maybe too thin. So I was thinking of movies I wanted to use for inspiration, things like Prometheus. They had a great kind of take on the cockpit of their vehicles and their kind of tech and the way they showed it. Also the way like modern NASA kind of vehicles look, new experiments and rovers. But actually, I've just been playing a lot of Starfield, and so was really inspired by the designs there. They're just really beautiful stuff, really nice, like near future kind of stuff, showing a lot of structure versus, hard and soft surfaces. And so really got inspired by, the kind of cockpits in my spaceships in that game. So I got to designing, and I was shocked at how hard it was to design a chair. I've never really sat down and tried to work out a chair, in a lot of detail. For most of the G.I. Joe stuff I've done before, it's been very simple and trying to match the kind of 80s toy-like aesthetic. But here I wanted to add some detail, kind of make it look really functional, make it look like there's an aluminum frame with some softer areas, maybe some grab bars, these kind of information panels that have wires and cables going to them, just to get a lot of detail into the cockpit. And so I settled on this design, which I was pretty happy with. The 3D prints I did in resin, and I was excited. My figures fit into them, and it worked pretty well. Fit into the cockpit, didn't take up too much space. And I feel it fulfilled that kind of look that I was going for. Characters have a good field of view. It looks like they can look down at the ground, look forward, and really kind of survey the, the terrain and what's coming up. So that's pretty much it for the this update. I've been trying to do as much as I can, but life's been getting in the way, been pretty busy, but still chugging along on this project. I'm really excited to be in the interior now. I'm excited to add a little more detail to the cockpit, to the walls, but then get to the next section and work on the couch, the living quarters, start to look at the bunks, think about that and how the crew kind of interacts and sits back there looking back at the mock-up. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you got something out of it. Hope we'll see you in the next one. And yo, Joe.